What should Israel do about the flotillas? The last flotilla was 50 boats coming from Turkey and trying to enter the Gaza territorial waters, but there's a military blockade on those waters. Should Israel see the flotilla workers, flotilla volunteers, as humanitarian aid workers? They self-identify as humanitarian workers trying to help a humanitarian crisis, something very noble. Or on the other hand, should Israel see them as aiding and abetting an enemy in a time of war, trying to break a military blockade and therefore being an enemy? Should Israel turn those ships around in the mid-seas and the high seas? Should they disable the boats? Should they allow them to come in and bring whatever aid that they were hoping to bring? Israel chose to arrest the flotilla members and also to humiliate them. That was the choice that was taken. And today we're going to ask whether that was indeed the right choice. Let's watch some footage to get a sense of what transpired. This is Israel's Minister of Transportation, Miri Regev, and she's saying that here's another approaching, this time with 140. She calls them terror supporters. Okay, there's no real will, according to her, to do any humanitarian aid. Now, here's Israel's Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben Gvir, and he came to some detention place, I think in Ashkelon or in Ashdod, on the Mediterranean, and he proceeded to film his interactions with the detainees. Don't get nervous by their screamings. They're calling out, not to get emotional about it, he says. These are Euro types, ostensibly not criminals. On the other hand, they're trying to break a naval blockade during a time of war. And clearly, the choice was taken by the Israeli police was to see them and to treat them as terrorists indeed. Okay, so they are now in a prone position. They're arrested, and the police is playing for them the Israeli national anthem, the Hatikva. So this is clearly, without a question, an act of humiliation. There is here an act of humiliation. That's what's happening here. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's exactly what I think were the footage that was released by the Office of the National Security. Okay, so they came with a lot of pride. Now look at them now. They came as big heroes. Now they don't look like heroes at all, do they? Look at them now. So they're not heroes, they are terror supporters. That's how the minister chooses to describe them. Okay, so he says, let me have them and throw them into jail with terror supporters, because that's what they are. They're foreign arriving terror supporters. So these are two very different narratives, right? One narrative is the narrative of humanitarian aid and coming to the aid of a humanitarian crisis. And the other narrative is, no, you're terror supporters. There's nothing humanitarian in your action at all. And therefore, you're going to be treated as terrorists trying to break into our land. The images that we're seeing now are the same images they showed before, but now they're adding that Prime Minister Netanyahu said this is not in line. This action of this Minister Ben Gvir was not in line with Israel's values. But it's pretty obvious that the critique was rather muted. Okay, Israeli naval frogmen boarded the boat. Okay, and I know some of these frogmen. Okay, so now there's, of course, the claim of abuse while in Israeli custody. But we really saw what the abuse looked like. It was a humiliation, not so much an abuse. Now they're gonna use the usual language that Israel abused them.
Un posto del terrore, cioè un posto in cui era praticamente un quadrato di container, cioè non Welcome to Israel. Questo hanno detto. Ti pesavano.
Now listen, just look at these guys. With respect, I say, do they look beaten to you? Is there a mark on their face? They look like they have fresh conditioner in their hair. And I just from looking at these images, they say the right things, but somehow it does not look to me like they were so-called abused.
Ti dicevano welcome to Israel.
C'era addirittura una panic room nella quale venivamo introdotti, ci davano le scarpe in mano per essere anche, cioè che non ci potevamo neanche difendere, non sapevamo che entravamo in questo.
So they couldn't defend themselves. Well, are you coming to do a violent act? What do you mean defend yourself? You were trying to enter territorial waters of Israel and in a time of war where there's a blockade on Gaza. So you were treated, and here's the conflict. They were treated as enemy combatants, right?
In questo container e c'erano 3 persone che dicendo welcome to Israel ci picchiavano, 3 energumeni che ci picchiavano selvaggiamente.
They beat them savagely. Not one person seems to have a facial mark so far. There were 3 thugs who beat us savagely, he claims. He looks like he's standing well. He's not in a wheelchair or anything like that. And to me, it's a little doubtful that they were beaten savagely. It looks to me like they were humiliated. It is definitely what I saw. I saw humiliation, but I didn't see any savage beatings.
Io ho preso un pugno nell'occhio a un certo punto.
You were punched in the eye. It doesn't look, there's no mark. I wish I could see somebody with a mark.
Sembrava che non vedessi più, ho preso dei calci ovunque.
Okay, and there was 2 different ministers there, including Minister Regev. Okay, so says Minister Regev, anybody who's a terrorist supporter is going to listen to a Tikva. And the reason Tikva, Israeli national anthem, on a loop, and she's saying, we're going to humiliate you. You deserve that.
Tikva ולופים, שיבינו מה קורה למי שמגיע בצורה כזאת למדינת ישראל.
So you see 2 ministers, one from the Likud, one from the Jewish Strength Party, really not backing down, doubling down and saying, this is exactly what's going to happen when you approach our country like this, and that's the way we're going to treat you. Now, I wanted to just remind you what Israeli hostages were treated like, the humiliation that they faced when those that weren't murdered, raped, then murdered, those few that were released, very, very few, look at what it looked like when they were released. Do you remember this image? This was from February 25. Remember, they were put on display with a background, a Hamas background. They were given like they were made to kind of stand on this podium. Now, what do you think this was? And look in the back, it says Zionism will not, etc. This was an act of national humiliation. What the Hamas was doing was humiliating the few hostages that they had not murdered. And why were they doing that? To send the message to Israel: we will humiliate your people. We will humiliate you. And that is, that. Now, I'm not trying to say to you that it's all beautiful. It's not, but it's part of a war. It's part of a war. Ukraine tries to humiliate Putin, and Putin tries to humiliate Ukraine, right? That's part of warfare. That's part of warfare, and certainly part of the Middle East, where enemies are to be, downtrodden. Remember, by the way, in the Bible, also Joshua was supposed to step on the necks of the of the generals of the opposing nations that stood in their way. Now, interestingly enough, there's 2 more factors that I want to throw into this discussion. First thing is the bizarre story of the Flotilla activists in Spain. This is the bizarrest part, right? The bizarrest part is that after they were kicked out of Israel and they went back to their home countries, including Spain. They got in a crazy fight in the airport in Spain with local police. And this is what it looked like. Here's the video. Absolutely crazy stuff. So the Israeli Foreign Ministry has been tweeting the heck out of this story. Basically, their first line was, "We demand an explanation from the Spanish government regarding its treatment of the flotilla activists." Okay, you see that they're clearly making fun of what's happening there, and so there's like wild scenes that you can see here. Here's another video. The flotilla anarchists bring provocation, chaos everywhere. Here they are in Greece, making trouble there. But the funniest video of them all is the Israeli Foreign Ministry writing, "The flotilla anarchists are driving the Spanish police crazy." Let's watch this video. Oh my God, they are beating the crud. Now you see these people, they're going to have marks. They're going to have marks. You hear that yelling? You see this dragging? You see this dragging? You see this? Yeah, these people are going to have a mark on them. So these videos really show the hypocrisy of countries like Spain, who really beat the crap out of these flotilla folks when they do one little thing that they don't like. But Israel's held to a very high standard and is seen as a big troublemaker when it does the Middle East thing, which is to humiliate its enemies, which is, as I showed you with Hamas, that's how wars are fought around here. The folks in France didn't get to treat their flotilla people this way, so they had the temerity to say it this way, right? They say that they're banning Ben Gvir, Minister Ben Gvir, over reprehensible actions. The foreign minister announced Saturday that National Security Minister Ben Gvir was banned with immediate effect from all French territory due to his reprehensible actions. Now, we saw the Spanish police was much more reprehensible. And this is interesting. They say, "We disapprove of this flotilla's approach, which produces no useful effect and burdens diplomatic and consular services, whose professionalism and dedication I salute." Okay, but we cannot tolerate French nationals being threatened, intimidated, or brutalized in this way, especially by a public official. Now, I want to see whether indeed there were any French citizens in Spain that were being beaten over there or not. I want to see if that's true or not, and if the French foreign minister was going to make any kind of statement there. Finally, just to kind of round it all out, I want to show you the flotilla members themselves and show you where they got off, not in Spain, where they got beaten, not in Greece, where they made trouble, but rather in Turkey. Check this out. And this will give you a sense of who these guys really are.
We've been beaten.
Wait, look at what they're wearing. They're wearing some kind of pro-Palestine type of outfit. I don't know. They're in the man in the great pajama here, but they all got keffiyehs. And you see the Turkish airline has picked them up.
Tortured, systematically, dehumanized, and,
Well, dehumanized, you certainly were. You were humiliated. If you want to call that dehumanization, it's humiliation, no doubt about it. You were humiliated, for sure. That's what the Israeli ministers were doing purposefully. But were you beaten? Were you abused? I'm not sure that those are the right words, right? I think those are extra words that make it sound much worse than it was. You were humiliated, and I wish you would say we were humiliated purposefully.
We've just had a little taste of what the Palestinians go through every day, some for years in detention.
From when we were intercepted, we were met with such levels of violence. Our boats were shot at, and from the moment that we entered the prison ship to touching down in occupied Palestine, we were violated in all different manner of ways, and the fact that Israel would do that to us, with the world on us, I can only imagine what they do to Palestinian prisoners.
Look at this hug. Look at this smile on the face. Look what they're wearing, right? These are not humanitarian aid workers. These are friendlies to the enemy. These are combatants. That's what it looks like to me. And look at did they look beaten? No. There was one lady in a stretcher. There was one lady in a stretcher. Did you see the lady in the stretcher? I saw a lady in the stretcher, but look at what the foreign ministry put up with regarding to the lady in the stretcher. There was a lady in the stretcher. Surely I saw that. But interestingly enough, the foreign ministry also cut up with the lady in the stretcher. And here she is in the stretcher, but here she is just a little bit later. She looks like she's okay now that she made it to Turkey or wherever. She looks okay. So the stretcher thing is one of those classics. We know all about how that works. We know that that's called Pallywood. We know about this these how should we say, acted these put-ons of what people went through in order to make Israel look more egregious. In short, I want to do one last comment on this, which is I think that humiliation, although not a beautiful thing, if you're talking about regular life, but when you're talking about war, humiliation is simply part of warfare. Notice, you remember how President Trump talked about, he died like a dog, that kind of thing. Humiliation is part and parcel of human warfare for its time-honored tradition. If I was Minister Ben Gvir, I may have smiled a little bit less, and also Minister Miri Regev. I think that treating them as criminals and giving a professional face would have maybe been a little bit better instead of reveling in it. But that being said, the minute that our government decided to act this way, I think it's imperative that the rest of the government back them up and not to hear lots of complaints. At the end, we're at war. Israel is at war. And because it's at war, it has to act in the rules of war. I think that there was no abuse. I don't think there was beatings. I don't think there was any sexual abuse. I think there was humiliation, which might not sound so fun, on a video. But when you are pushing back against the enemy and you want to make sure that the enemy doesn't come at you again like that, and that they learn their lesson, and that they understand that the other side means business, and that they're deterred by this humiliation. And the Middle East, Jews, Muslims, and others understand the power of humiliation. That deterrence is powerful and real. And in a war, that's what you want. You want to save lives through deterrence. Folks, I want to thank you so much for being with me in this analysis, and remind you that you too can be part of the story of building Israel. It's simple, and we need your help. BuildIsrael.com. When we build Israel together, we make Israel stronger. We make each other stronger because we are part of this great and amazing time. I want you to join me, please, on the internet at yishai.tv or on YouTube, Yishai Fleisher TV as a YouTube channel. You can help us also. You can help the show and my team when you go to buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. And we need your help. If you ever want me to visit your community and speak to your congregation of any kind, please write me an email, yishai@yishaifleisher.com. All right, folks, stay strong out there. We're at war. Israel's at war. And we have to continue to be vigilant and with the help of God, make the right decisions. God bless you wherever you are, and shalom.